It was one of those nights when the world seemed to have turned its back on him. The sky was bruised with heavy clouds, rain fell in relentless sheets, and the wind howled like a wounded creature. Grant drove aimlessly through the lonely highway, his wipers struggling to keep up with the storm. His heart was heavier than the storm itself. Tonight should have been his engagement party. Instead, he was driving alone, the ring still in his pocket, after his fiancée broke it off just hours earlier. She said she couldn't marry a man still figuring out his dreams. Those words kept echoing in his mind like a cruel melody. If you believe in kindness, destiny, and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Because sometimes one small act of goodness can change an entire life. The road stretched endlessly ahead, the headlights cutting through the sheets of rain until Grant saw her, a figure standing by the roadside, drenched, shivering, and alone. She wasn't waving for help, just hugging herself, trying to shield from the cold. Something in her posture, the quiet desperation, the silent surrender, made him slow down. He stopped beside her, rolled down the window, and asked if she needed a ride. The woman hesitated, then nodded, her lips trembling as she whispered a faint thank you. She slid into the passenger seat, her soaked hair clinging to her face, her eyes wide but kind. Her name was Lila. She had missed the last bus home after her job interview and had been walking for hours when the storm hit. Her phone had died, and there were no shelters nearby. Grant offered her his jacket, and as she wrapped it around herself, he noticed her hands, roughened but delicate, the hands of someone who had worked hard for everything she had. The ride was quiet at first, the hum of the rain filling the silence, but slowly their stories began to unfold. She told him she had lost her parents young, worked her way through college, and was trying to find stability in a new city. He told her about his failed engagement, about how lost he felt in a life that once seemed perfectly planned. There was something healing about the conversation. Two strangers, broken in different ways, sitting in a small cocoon of warmth in the middle of a storm. When they reached her apartment, she thanked him again, her voice soft but steady. "You didn't have to stop," she said. He smiled faintly and replied, "Maybe I needed to." And just like that, she disappeared into the night, and he never expected to see her again. But sometimes life weaves threads we cannot see. Days turned into weeks. Grant threw himself into his work, trying to move on. He was an architect, designing spaces for others while his own life felt like a blueprint gone wrong. Yet something had changed in him since that night. He had seen a kind of resilience in Lila that lingered in his thoughts. On restless evenings, he'd catch himself wondering how her interview went, whether she got the job, or if she was doing okay. But he had no way to find her, and so she remained a quiet mystery in the corner of his mind. Then one day, fate decided to surprise him. He was at a charity event his firm sponsored, a fundraiser to design housing for single mothers and low-income families. While moving through the crowd, discussing plans and shaking hands, his eyes caught someone across the hall. A woman, her hair neatly tied back, wearing a simple navy dress. Lila. She was there, smiling, confident, and talking passionately to one of the donors about community rebuilding. For a moment, Grant froze. She looked different, stronger, brighter, but those eyes were the same. He walked over, their eyes met, and recognition flickered instantly. They laughed, a little awkwardly at first, but the connection reignited effortlessly. She told him she had gotten the job, working at a non-profit that partnered with architectural firms to design affordable housing. "So, technically," she said with a small grin, "we're coworkers in kindness now." Grant couldn't help but admire her energy, her belief in creating beauty where most saw brokenness. They started meeting more often, for coffee, for project discussions, for long evening walks that drifted from work talk to dreams and fears. For the first time in months, Grant felt something awaken inside him, something gentle, hopeful, terrifyingly real. Lila had a way of reminding him that even broken hearts could beat again. But love, even when it feels destined, is rarely simple. Just as things between them began to deepen, Grant got a call from his ex-fiancée, Natalie. She wanted to talk. She said she'd made a mistake and wanted to meet one last time. Grant agreed, not because he wanted her back, but because he needed closure. When he told Lila about it, her smile faltered for a moment, though she tried to hide it. "You should go," she said quietly. "Sometimes we need to close old doors before opening new ones." The meeting with Natalie was bittersweet. She apologized, tears in her eyes, saying she'd been scared of how deeply he cared about things beyond success, about people, kindness, and meaning. "I thought it made you weak," she said. "Now I realize it's what makes you good." Grant thanked her, wished her well, and walked away feeling lighter. But when he called Lila afterward, she didn't answer. The next day, he found out she had been offered a 6-month fellowship abroad, designing sustainable housing in South America. She left him a short note. "Thank you for reminding me what good people look like. I need to chase this dream. But maybe someday our paths will cross again." He was happy for her, proud even, but her absence left an ache he couldn't shake. 6 months became 9, then 12. He tried to move on, and though life slowly settled, her memory never faded. Then, as time tends to do, it carried him forward. 2 years later, Grant met Lillian, a kind-hearted teacher who shared his love for service and art. They built a steady, honest relationship. Lillian grounded him, and in time he realized he loved her deeply. When he finally proposed, it felt right. Everyone said they were perfect together. Their wedding was planned for early spring, simple, elegant, surrounded by friends and family. The morning of the wedding was bright and soft, sunlight spilling through the stained glass windows of the old chapel. Grant stood at the altar, heart pounding, waiting for Lillian to walk down the aisle. Everything was perfect. The guests were seated, music played softly, and he smiled as he looked around the room until his eyes froze on someone walking through the back doors. Lila. She looked radiant, wearing a light dress and holding a small gift bag. Their eyes met across the room, and in that moment, time seemed to collapse. She hadn't changed much, just a little older, a little wiser, but her eyes carried the same warmth he remembered. Lillian's cousin, it turned out, worked in Lila's non-profit organization and had invited her without knowing their history. Lila smiled softly from a distance, a smile that said, "I'm happy for you." Grant's chest tightened, not with regret but gratitude. He realized that what they shared had never been about romance alone. She had entered his life when he had nothing left to give, and somehow she had taught him how to believe again. After the ceremony, when the laughter and music filled the air, Lila approached him quietly. "You look good, Grant," she said. "Happier." He smiled, nodding. "I am. And you?" She nodded back. "I'm where I need to be." They stood in silence for a moment, the kind that carries more than words ever could. Then she handed him the small gift bag and said, "For you both." Inside was a framed sketch, a drawing of a small car parked on a rainy road, with 2 silhouettes inside, light spilling through the windshield. At the bottom, she had written, "Sometimes the storms bring us to the right roads." Grant felt his eyes sting as he whispered, "Thank you." She smiled, turned, and melted into the crowd. He watched her leave one last time, knowing this was the kind of goodbye that didn't hurt, the kind that heals. Later that night, when the celebration faded and the stars spread across the quiet sky, Grant stood by the window of their hotel room, holding the sketch. Lillian came up behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Who drew that?" she asked softly. He smiled. "A stranger who once showed me what real kindness looks like." Lillian rested her head on his shoulder and whispered, "Then I'm grateful for her too." And in that moment, Grant realized that every twist of fate, every heartbreak, every storm, every stranger had led him here, to peace, to love, to understanding that kindness, no matter how small, never truly disappears. It ripples forward, changing lives in quiet, unseen ways. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel, because sometimes one selfless act can shape destinies in ways we'll never fully understand. Before you go, comment below and tell us, do you believe that people come into our lives for a reason? Because maybe, just maybe, the person you help in the rain today might one day walk into your story when you least expect it and remind you that love in all its forms always finds a way.